Yeah, it
Oh,
is a very unique uh, level of perception you have applied in your comparative analysis or correlative analysis of both the parables. And especially you could relate it with something beyond it, beyond the boundaries of the parables. So you connected with uncertainty principle and subatomic particle physics. Wonderful. In fact, our so-called spirit is a subatomic level particle.
yes, sir. Yeah.
At times it can become a little bit of a particle form. Then you can feel it. At other time it is on wave form. So definitely spirit is there, and it is
Mm-hmm.
definitely at the subatomic particle level of the human entity. Like the physical subatomic particle is in the physical reality, there is an element of that in the human being also. Definitely, yes. And both the parables were ultimately about that. All right. Okay,
Okay, sir.
Naveen.
Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
Who is next? Yeah, Amaya. What do you want to say?
What do I have to say on Naveenji's presentation?
Oh, okay. You
Yeah.
want to say something about that? Okay.
No,
Why not?
I'm sorry. I don't
No, no,
understand.
no, no, no. Say
Okay.
that.
Uh, yeah. So first of all, I didn't understand the level of interpretation or comparison you went to, Naveenji, because it was at a level that I do not understand because I don't understand or I have not learned particle physics and I don't know anything about it. But I could understand, I could feel that there was something beautiful you explained about it or related it to. As I understand what is atoms and I know something little about it. So using that, I would say this is a very different thing. I never even thought that you could compare it to. That two people were compared to something I never even thought that it could be compared to. Uh,
He was not comparing people to subatomic particle level,
okay.
but he was talking about the sharpness of attention and the way it can access the spirit, the power of attention he was talking about. Yeah, in a
Oh,
way,
okay.
human beings are also kind of atoms only. Yeah, in a way. All right. Okay.
All right.
Okay, that's enough. Yeah, anybody else would like to comment on Naveen?
I must say that I also like the power of observation. How do you connect it to the uh, particle physics? Because I also searched a little bit today because when sir had given that assignment just to know the background of it, I didn't know that it was related to particle physics until today. And how you explained, like, when you focus your attention on the wave, you see only wave. When you focus your attention on the particle, you see only particle, which is very much relevant in other observations as well. So that was very wonderful correlation that you did from particle physics to this parable. So
Yeah, that is a beautiful example of using the concept of correlation, Naveen. See,
hmm,
it is not
Yes, sir.
dependent on that, you see.
Right, right, sir.
Particle,
Mm,
whatever you talked about, particle physics, it does not have any dependence on the parables. So,
exactly, sir.
but
Mm,
Nitya correctly used it. Yeah, all right, okay.
mm-hmm.
That is correlation.
Exactly.
Yeah, you correlated your observation with the statistics. All right, particles. Yeah, okay, all right,
Right, right, sir.
all right. Anybody else would like to say something? Because this also I want you to do, because it is now when you do that, you know it is not that easy to conceptualize your mental impressions about the presentations or the relatively higher level statements and descriptions and explanations and interpretations of someone, you know. That's also a competency you have to develop. If you are, especially when every one of you, I envisage a future where you will be training people. Okay? You have to give a feedback. You have to give a review of the other person's performance. And that review should be revealing, should be a light, should be enlightening. I mean, should be giving a new perspective on the part of the recipient of your feedback. So you should be competent in giving and conceptualizing. All of you definitely must have had a mental impression when you heard Nitya or Naveen. No doubt about that. But you might have realized by now that you have to work a little deeper. You have to focus your attention a little more deeper into your own inner world to properly conceptualize your review and to make a final comment on that. All right. It may be easy to say the presentation was wonderful, presentation was beautiful. That, of course, you must say, but also you must exemplify by giving evidences of why it was beautiful. And the total conceptualization of your review must be definitely above, at par with the kind of ideas or at par with the image of you as a trainer or a master or a guide. All right. Okay. Yeah. Of course, you are doing very well. Now, anybody else want to say something? If you want to say something, you can say. Otherwise, we will go to the next.
I started making observations on the correlations based on the circumstances and the experiences that the characters experienced in both the Master Cook and the Sound of the Forest. So the first point is that both their journeys began with the intention of attaining great levels of mastery. The cook wanted to become a master samurai, and the prince wanted to become a good ruler. So
All right.
the next major correlation I found was that actually both of them were at the centers of learning whatever they were seeking, and yet both of them had to go out of that place to actually learn it. The cook was with a master samurai, and yet to learn the art of sword he had to leave the monastery in the end. And the prince also, even though he was living in a palace already, he was with the king himself, but to learn to become a good ruler he had to seek somewhere else. That was the second correlation.
All right.
Then both the cook and the prince, they faced the threat of death in their endeavors. The cook when he was challenging for duels, and the prince in a forest, both encountered live situations of danger, and their training was in the actual world.
All right.
Then even though both of them had to constantly remain alert and had to kill if necessary, the final lesson for both of them was towards an act of kindness.
Oh.
The master cook, he was spared his life by Shogun, and that would have been a moment of ultimate kindness from a person who can kill with the touch of a sword. And the prince also, he was learning to listen to the unheard voices of the people and to develop that attitude of kindness.
That is brilliant.
Then both of them realized the spirit of the samurai and the good ruler respectively.
All right.
Yes, and both of them learned what they were seeking finally through a self realization process.
All
They
right.
had, yes. Then the prince saw the unseen and heard the unheard, and that was his turning point. The cook also had to learn the art of sword by seeing the unseen and hearing the unheard when he was learning in secrecy, and even when he was challenging for duels. Okay. Then both of them were alone on their journeys, and both had to set aside their identities to find their true nature.
Oh, that's brilliant.
In a forest, the status of prince became invalid, and the cook also had to give up his identity and transform it to the identity of a samurai in his journey. And both the cook and the prince went back to the master at critical junctures, and yet they were sent back to whatever they were seeking to continue with their journey. And that is when they found what they were looking for. So then the master also, I found their characters similar in both the parables, giving very few crucial hints, but otherwise not controlling or telling their disciples what to do. Both of them never got angry when they did not get the desired results from their disciples.
All
They
right.
just kept an eye on them.
Good.
That's all, sir.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Siddhi.
Really brilliant.
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you, Nitya.
So now more comments are required. As usual, very penetrating creative analysis of the essence and of the realities of the reference of the parables, and seeing comparable elements. Yes. And this I also, when this is mentioned, before I forget to tell you, I wanted to include one more aspect in the suggestion, one more part to be correlated to, one more dimension to be correlated to. Can you say what it was?
Is it that both were involved in a meditative art?
Yeah, of course, of course. No, that is beautiful. Anyway, so you said that, but I said in my invite, I talked about correlating the two parables. Correlation can be done with more than two variables. Normal correlation, or what we call symbol correlation in statistics, is correlation between two variables. Okay? Then there is a next level, correlation between more than two variables. That is
Yes,
called
sir.
multiple correlation.
Yes, sir.
So I thought of giving you an assignment of multiple correlation. So can you guess what was the third I would have mentioned?
The woodcutter and the satori.
Woodcutter.
The third parable, maybe that.
Any other option?
Two answers.
Of course.
Yes. Our own journey.
Yeah. That we will do. That is not to be done. That is very essential because, like Nitya also mentioned, unless the feedback is there, you may not get reinforced in your journey of evolution. And that feedback is an essential process in life also. As you travel towards a destination, you can see the sights on either side of the roads as an evidence towards the correctness of your destination. So that we will do later. All right. Very nice of you, Shruti. Yeah, yes,
And
Amaya. All right.
sir, can I
Yes.
say one thing?
Okay. All right. Okay. If you want to say something, of course, you're welcome. Anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think given that it is two parables and your presentation is actually correlated to the parable setting, because looking at your one single page presentation, it also looks like more like a parable. Like when I'm reading, I get the same feeling by reading your statements and the pictures and everything.
Exactly. Agree.
Thank you, Nitya.
All right. That's also a good observation. All right. Amaya, we want to say something about the correlation?
I was just reading it once again. So that is when she's doing the presentation. Actually, I'm thinking about what I have to say half of the time, because I'm lost in my own thoughts even though I'm listening. Okay. So I actually I don't know what to say right now
About what?
about her presentation.
No, about her presentation, you don't have to. Now you
Okay.
give your presentation. You talk about your understanding of the correlation between the two parables or anything else.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Do it. Are you ready to do it now?
Yeah, I'm ready to do it.
All right, do it quickly.
Yeah, so I don't have a presentation to put on the screen. So I think there are a lot of things that evolve as both the parables take place, and there are things like the master evolves, both the master evolves, and both the students evolve. That is, Tosotsu and Prince Tai, both of them evolve. I think that I came to that understanding because Tosotsu evolves by like learning the art of sword secrecy. That is an evolution. And Prince Tai, he goes to the forest, and that is understood. But the master here, I referred to Kyozen. He evolves in a way that I felt is that by the end, he's actually different. And he doesn't go by the rules of the master samurai that he has to actually kill another person if he is not meant to learn the art of sword, like the cook.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
here the Prince Tai's master, he does not hope that he has no hope, or he doesn't I think he doesn't actually already think that the Prince Tai would come back with an answer. The first time he comes, he doesn't have an answer. Well, so it is at that moment the master asks him to go back. So I don't think he never had that solution, or he never planned on saying that. So that is an evolution, I think. And the next one, there is Panku and Shogun. And again, so Panku and Shogun, I relate both of them as Shogun is the sound of the forest. That is, Tosotsu meets Shogun, so he can be the sound of the forest. And out of the sound of the forest, I think Prince Tai hears the unheard, and that is where Tosotsu makes the greatest Shanoe. That is the unheard. So he becomes a master cook. That is out of discipline that he has learned from learning the art of sword. There's an unheard difference that he can't tell. I think so.
Unheard the difference between his normal Shanayu and the last
And
Shanayu.
the last Shanoe.
Okay,
And
that's good.
So both of them wants to showcase their skills to the master. Actually, there's an unknown,
That's also good. Okay.
there's a subtle feeling for the Tosotsu when he was accepted back to the monastery. When he comes back, even after he went, that he went from the monastery, he was accepted back. So I think that would be the most greatest thing in life for him. Even if he dies after that, I don't think it's a problem. So it is being accepted by the master himself, and then next the other prince goes back to the master, and he goes back to the forest not only because he wants to hear the unheard, because he doesn't know what the unheard is. He just wants to come up with an answer so that the master will be satisfied. So out of that, he gets to listen to the unheard, or he gets to hear the unheard. Yeah, and then there is the 14 days that Shogun gives him.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
And there is Panku gives him more time to go and listen again.
That you cannot say more time. That was the time for that. That's
listen again. So when Ashwadiji referred to the kindness of both the masters, I felt this was also, I could relate it to this. Just the 14 days and to go listen again. Then there is learning the art of sword and secrecy, and it was related to the prince sitting alone in the forest the first time. So the first time, both of them don't know what they're actually trying to learn. So the art of sword cannot be learned just like that. He observes it the first day and the second day, and by time he learns it. So that's the same thing that happens to the prince. The first day he doesn't get the sounds. Even though when he goes back to the master, he explains there's the normal sound.
not first day, first time.
Yeah, the first time. So he doesn't learn it in the first time. That was related to the secrecy. And then, then another point is that the cook had to learn in secrecy. The cook did not have the privilege to learn the art of sword. He did not have the freedom to do whatever he wanted to do. But the prince, in order to achieve what he had to do, he had full freedom as the prince. At the same time, he didn't have freedom because he was born a prince and had to do what he had to do. But the cook had a choice. Even though he did it in secrecy, he had a choice to change from what he had to do. Even though he was a master cook, he thought that he wanted to be a master samurai too. But the prince, I don't know, he must have wanted to be someone else. But he had to become a king or the prince of a country, and he's obliged to that responsibility. And the next point is, so overcoming the sounds and fear. That is, both of them do it. The master or the cook, Tosotsu, overcomes the fear of being found. He has that confidence that he would be able to learn it in secrecy. And there's the Prince Tai is also overcoming the fear of the forest, the dense forest where he goes to listen to the unheard. So listening to the unheard isn't easy at all. So because it is a very high level of concentration is needed, and at the same time you have to be aware of your surroundings too. So there is both of them overcome their fears, the fear of death, and they have a new, I think, a much more high attention they gain out of the fear. Because when there is fear, there is less attention, I think.
No. When there is fear, there could be great attention. When there is fear, there is less attention for the majority.
Okay.
It is not that fear.
Oh.
It is not a fear like a normal fear. In the
Yes.
forest, when you go for hunting or for an expedition, there's a continuous sense of fear. That continuous sense of fear continuously maintains the sharpness of attention. No, fear doesn't reduce attention, but I wonder why you said that. Maybe it is applicable in the classrooms. The
Okay.
fear of the teacher, the fear of the subject may be affecting the level of attention of the students. Quite possible.
Yeah. And the next or the last point I would like to say is that the prince is much more younger than the master cook. So his mind is much more wandering here and there. Probably as the prince, that would be in the forest. There is much more things he has to overcome and learn than a person who is already a master in one art. That is the master cook. He's already a master in one art. So he just had to channelize his attention into a much more greater discipline. But the prince had to learn to channelize the attention from the very beginning.
That's good. That's a good observation. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so that is all I have correlated until now.
All right.
And I also have another point that I got, not a related, it's not a correlation, but I felt that art, it's just an idea, I'm just sharing, that an art, a martial art is much more a greater discipline and it creates much more attention than any other art in this world. That is something I came up with today morning. So I was going to get milk. So I was walking, which was around 1.5 kilometers. So I was thinking about both the parables, and that is an idea I came up with. So I wanted to share it because I got that idea when I was thinking of those two parables.
All right. That's also good. When you think about something, when you reflect upon something, you should be also alert. You should be that much flexibly open for any more inputs to come. That's what the crux of all so-called creative enterprises. You know, a great number of people are doing research and analysis for inventing something new, etc., in the corporations. But their attention is rather focused on, like Naveen said, on something. If they were open, they could see many more things. That's how all major inventions actually happen. Okay, that's a beautiful point. So that's good. So this is what happened, for example, in Naveen also. When he reflected upon this, he could see the glimpse of the role of what you call the phenomena in subatomic in quantum physics also. So that's something which I want every one of you to develop. Okay, that only will help you to reach much higher levels. Focusing upon something and understanding that is quite a normal process for a great lot of people. That's what highly academically brilliant students and all that. Okay, so you look for something, of course you have to, but be always ready to identify the signals of different other domains also. Okay, that is something very essentially you have to be maintaining. Because of our attention geared to some particular purpose, if you become obsessed about that purpose, even when other signals really come very evident before you, you may not notice it. Even if you notice it, you may disregard it. Do not ever do that. That's why everybody should be doing writing every day, so-called diary writing or something. When you really do that writing, you will be astonished that some other wonderful points also come in between. All right. So that's good, Ameya. That's good on the part of Naveen also. So
Yes, sir.
bring in other elements. Because as of now, all of you are highly capable of conceptualization and attention and analytic thinking. So you may develop ideas and you may be able to expand and explain and interpret an available idea. Already you're already capable of that. Now the next step is to get as many what you call correlated ideas or activities or perceptions. All right. That only has led to the formation of all these ideologies and perspectives in the world. You know, what was there for the initial first time observers in the world? Whatever they observed. What was there for Isaac Newton to observe the thing falling? But something else interfered. That led to the foundation of principles of gravitational forces. In that very beginning of that primitive forest, somebody observed whatever is available. Okay, they understood all that. But any new ideas would come beyond the observed. All right, Nitya, got it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we always alert for getting at least one trace of a new thing into whatever you are observing, whatever you are reflecting upon, whatever you are conceptualizing, whatever you are doing, and so on and so forth. All right, good. The task was there. The task given to an officer, to a manager, to an R&D person, or to a scriptwriter is to write about a theme. So do not limit there. You can always go beyond. Great lot of people are trying to fulfill the what you call imagined tasks or purposes in their life to make money, to make a name, to get into senior positions in organizations or institutions, to get fame, etc. Okay, do that. But when you try for that, there may be other things happening. Listen to that also. Do not contain yourself within the peripheries of that. That's what That's what genius is. Otherwise, it is maybe wonderful, etc., etc. And to quickly coming to the final point, unless you have that kind of a sensitivity, you will not cut across the gateless gate of identifying that operating principle in you at a later point of time when all of you will be definitely interested in. Because that is that so-called operating principle, that so-called whatsoever you name it, that so-called satori will not be accessed by focusing on the given thing. Because if it was the given thing, a great lot of people have already noticed it. You know, it is so surprising that even when people are rigorously following the clear instructions of the so-called gurus and the sages and mystics in the Himalayas or in the Buddhist monasteries or anywhere, none of them get it. Even that's something very ridiculously mysterious. Even when clear directions are given, when if somebody follows it, they will not get it. That's why I told you the comparison that it is like taking a plastic ball from a water body with a single stick. The given direction becomes the single stick, and the ball slips away. So
Right.
that wonderful, that mysterious phenomenon called enlightenment or satori is very surprisingly, it's very tricky. It will not be accessible by whatsoever you try. It is
Mm-hmm.
just to the other side of whatever you try.
Mm.
So that is that ultimate freedom of mind. That's what ultimate innocence of your mind. That is the ultimate nobodiness of your self. Keep it. All right. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, simply brilliant, Amya. Very good presentation, and you have given out of box correlation, which nobody had distinguished till now. You have covered many uncommon areas in correlating the parables. That's great.
Thank you so much, Navinji.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
I felt that. Very
All
Yes.
good.
right. Yeah.
As Naveen ji mentioned, I also had doubts regarding the concept of correlation, but it was not in the way Naveen ji had. So I was wondering whether correlation included both positive correlation and negative correlation. But in the end, I chose to look at correlation in the similarities only, not the differences.
Okay.
Uh, these are some of the correlations that I found. One, the presence of a master and a student in both the parables. So in
Okay.
the master cook, it was Kyozen and Tosutsu, and in the sound of the forest it was Panku and Prince Kai.
Okay.
And the second one is that both had clear goals for the students. By student, I mean the person who is learning
All
or
right.
wants to gain mastery.
Okay.
So, in terms of the master cook, the cook wanted to become a master samurai and attain fame and recognition.
Okay.
Whereas the prince wanted to describe the sound of the forest. That was a goal given to him. However, in the case of these goals, in case of the master cook, the goal was set by the cook himself. Whereas the sound of the forest, the goal was set by the master. So that's a point of, I'd say, negative correlation or a
Yeah,
difference that I could.
that's also a good point. That's a good point. But would you like to interpret that situation?
Interpret like?
Would you like to say something about that? Something more about that? That's a good observation. But what do you want to say? How would you interpret that beyond the uh, case? You got the question clear?
I think so.
The
Well,
situation in the parable you have correctly differentiated,
hmm,
but that differentiation, can you use that differentiation into interpreting some realities of outside that?
okay. In maybe day-to-day lives,
Yeah.
we have we set a number of goals for ourselves. We have faced a number of goals for ourselves. Many of which may be set by ourselves for maybe a personal development or something that we want to do on our own.
Okay.
And many of it may be set for us by others. Say when you're working in an organization, the targets that you have to meet and such things have been set by uh, maybe your boss in an organization. Maybe we can equate the boss to a master.
All right. One more point beyond that.
Uh, no, I'm not able to identify now.
Okay. What about our
So
very existence itself?
existence.
At that existential organization, would you like to say something? What are you trying to achieve? I mean, why you are here and so on and so forth also are there, right?
Okay, there are some things that is in our control that we want to have to do, and there are many things beyond our control, say by fate or destiny, which we end up doing.
Yeah, that's of course, that's also there.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. Yeah.
Both the students in both the parables, they have to master an unfamiliar skill.
That's a beautiful observation, correct. Uh, uh, I thought Nitya would be identifying that because she proceeded with a systematic framework. She created a framework that's beautiful. That's also a good strategy of
Yeah.
creative analytic thinking. Create frameworks, that means some ideas, some concepts, and then look for evidences to substantiate that framework. So I thought that Nitya would say that, identify that. All right. Okay, nothing wrong. I just thought that. I thought that because she didn't have time also. Anyway, once again you say that, yeah.
Yeah, so both the students they had to master an unfamiliar skill. So in the case of the cook, he had to master warfare or samurai skills, and in the case of the prince, he had to hear the sounds of the forest. That was the task assigned to him.
All right. Can you interpret that into a much higher level? Can you interpret that? That is the observation. That is, now understand what is interpretation.
Okay.
That's an observation correctly made. Now you interpret it for further advantages, experiences, and feelings and perception for the audience or for yourself. All right. That implies what? That is interpretation.
Okay. It implies that any skill that we can learn, maybe any skill. It may not necessarily be a familiar one.
Point number one. All right. Two. Is that only learning another skill in this case?
The sharpening of existing skills as well. You can
Two,
hear
three. This was not just developing another skill, This unfamiliar skill or competency or power they had to develop for not for any normal purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's obvious.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
one had to become a samurai and the other want to become the ruler of the country.
Yeah, that they are all relatively very, very higher levels of goals, higher orbits or higher dimensions of goals. So what I am pointing out is something very simple only, In order to achieve the highest dimensions of your purpose in life, it is very likely that you have to learn something that is actually unfamiliar to you, and that means that is not yet with you.
Okay, maybe you will have to go beyond your comfort zone and.
Definitely, many things are required. Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people would have been already in their finest condition. Look at the human beings in the world. What is going on in the world? Environment is so advanced. And what you call internet technologies, cyber technologies, all the great things are plenty around. And what is happening in the world? They're all, anyway, that is not our domain to reflect and worry about. Yeah. The greater the goal, the very likely that you have to take some unfamiliar steps.
Yeah, I guess the climb would be more steeper then.
Yeah, correct.
So you'll need more skills.
Not only greater, unfamiliar. That's very important. Something that you have not done till today.
Yeah, because the terrain is also unfamiliar in both these cases. So
Terrain is unfamiliar and unknown also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
And both the students, they master the skill over a period of years.
That's also yeah.
The cook, I don't know how many years, but it definitely took many years. And the prince, more than a year, more than a year, yeah.
In a way, I know Prince also several years. You may not know the background of the training for a crown prince. He had already undergone several years of very rigorous training under the masters inside the very palace. So the final learning, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Several years, a period of years, of course. All right.
Okay. Then both the skills were mastered in potentially dangerous environments.
That's also beautiful. Yeah, correct.
One in the monastery, in case of cook, it was in the monastery without the knowledge of the master. The cook had to learn in secrecy. He had there was always a danger of being killed if he was found out practicing the samurai skills. And in case of the prince, it was the forest. A lot of wild animals. He always had to be alert to survive in such an environment.
True.
So these are the things, correlations that I found. I have still not completed my list. Correlate with my own frame of mind. I would say the master cook and the prince, both of them, they train their mind to that level of attention and that level of concentration to achieve what they wanted. And in this case, particularly in this case of this assignment, I don't think I was in then I did justice in terms of my attention to the task. So I felt there was more possibilities that could come up. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
But
But
that's also a
yes,
thing. But if you drive your engines more, you will get, you will see more and more sights on either side of your journey. No doubt. All right,
Yeah.
that's already proved by what you already have traveled. So that's enough, and you get a clue. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people already mentioned. All of them are very more or less different from the other ones. So that much of interpretations and observations are possible. Good. All right. Yeah. Ramesh. By the way, anybody wants to say something about Anu and Radha's presentation? Idea? Anybody want to ask her anything? Or
Sir, uh, I would just like to add to that the unfamiliar skill point that you were mentioning, that Anu mentioned. Yeah, no, I was thinking both of them, that unfamiliar skill was the path to explore something very different. I mean, it it was a indirect approach to getting what both of them wanted. The um the prince, his even though his aim was to become a good ruler, the skill that he had to develop was to listen to sounds. And the uh, the cook also, to realize his spirit as a cook, he had to do something else entirely. And
Both were indirect.
yeah, both took indirect paths, or cut the Gordian knot, maybe.
yeah, that's true.
That's all, sir.
That is the mystery of the top of Everest, because
Isn't life like that
because
in many ways?
once again, I know
Isn't life like that in many ways? While you're
definitely.
doing the act or you're doing something, you never know whether it's a direct or indirect path.
No, that life in itself, yes. But a great number of people are following already available known paths, direct paths, direct paths to happiness. You study well, get good marks, get good jobs, get good marriage, get good house, get good car. They think that is the direct path available. So life is definitely, again, regardless of all this direct ensured consequences, life will always ultimately will be like that only. You know? Yeah, you're right. But at the same time, many people may not be sensitive to this truth which you are talking. They think maybe more money may make them more happy, or more possessions may make them more happy, or more fame, etc., etc. Because they do not have that originality or originality in creative analytic review of existence in general. They do not sit somewhere and reflect. They do not take a sabbatical leave out of life and go somewhere and meditate. Then they would realize what you said. Yes. And when you realize that, then your life is very smooth, regardless of whatever turbulences outside. Right, Hanu? Yes.
I I felt there's a lot of reflections going on at the moment. When you're doing it or when you're presenting, also you're presenting, but at the same time you're reflecting on many things.
Yeah, of course. That's good. That, of course, precisely. That's what I wanted to precisely happen with every one of you. There's something very wonderful you mentioned there. When you do something, there must be an ongoing background program of reflecting on whatever you are doing also. That only will help you evolve. Otherwise, that is great. Many people are not able to do that. Therefore, whatever they do for years together, there is no much variation. All right. Ramesh, would you like to say something?
Yeah, yes, sir. So, yeah, I have not done the exercise, but two observations, sir.
Yeah, all right.
One is,
By the way, are you free? Your assignment, you're somewhere else, right?
yeah, I'm traveling, sir. I'm traveling in bus.
All right.
So, going to hometown, down south, Bukote.
If you're free only, you talk. Otherwise, it's
No,
okay.
no, I can speak, sir. I'm traveling, no problem. I can speak.
You're driving and
So,
talking?
no. I am in the bus. I am sitting in the bus.
All
Sir.
right. Okay.
So, in Ashwati's presentation, the beauty in her presentation is that the concise, it is so short. Every observations of hers is 2 or 3 lines. Within the 2 or 3 lines, she was able to capture the complete essence. So that is one thing which I really admired. It's so difficult to make things so short and crisp and express it so elegantly.
All right.
That is
Yeah.
that is one.
So,
And another is in Amaya's presentation. When he was talking about both the parables, he went beyond the obvious. So the aspect of what you are talking about in terms of that the perception that is going definitely it's definite reality, and he has gone to the perception level where he was able to get to that subtle cues. So in both the things, he was trying to compare those subtle cues and trying to get to the insight level, and he was explaining things. So that also I really admired, sir. So good learnings from these two things. And
all right.
yeah, Anu's presentation I was not listening because I was I think in travel. I didn't listen. Maybe I'll listen after Ashwati puts the video. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Okay. Okay.